We live in a culture that teaches us to numb, outrun, and distract ourselves from discomfort. Overthinking, just keep busy. Feeling unworthy, post something that gets likes. Regret, gnawing at your insides, pour another glass of wine, scroll another hour, add another task to the list. We've been trained to escape our inner world, not meet it. But here's the truth. You cannot heal what you refuse to face. Freedom doesn't come from pretending we're okay. It comes from getting radically honest about when we're not. Overthinking isn't just a mental loop. It's often a signal that something deeper is calling for our attention. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's shame, maybe it's the simple ache of not feeling like we're good enough. And when we learn to pause and say, what's really happening here, that's the moment we start to loosen the grip that overthinking has on us. Awareness is the quiet act of witnessing without judgment. It's saying, I notice I'm spiraling right now. I feel like I need everyone to approve of me. I'm carrying this regret and it still hurts. That's not weakness, that's courage. Because awareness isn't passive, it's the beginning of choice. When we become aware, we reclaim our power. We no longer act from automatic patterns. We respond from intention. We create a gap between the thought and the reaction. And in that gap, we get to ask, is this story I'm telling myself true? What do I really need right now? Who am I doing this for? You don't need to fix everything overnight. You don't need to have all the answers. But you do need to begin with awareness, because the path to freedom doesn't start with running. It starts with standing still long enough to tell the truth. We all want to be seen, to be valued, to be told you're enough. That's human. It's wired into our bones. But somewhere along the way, many of us started outsourcing our sense of worth. We handed the measuring stick to the world and said, you tell me if I'm okay. We chase approval like it's oxygen from parents, teachers, bosses, partners, strangers on the internet. And for a moment, when we get the praise, the likes, the you did great, it feels like we can finally exhale. But the moment is fleeting. Because approval isn't solid ground. It shifts, it drifts. It depends on trends, moods, expectations, and unspoken rules. And when it disappears, we're left gasping again. Here's the cost. When we make approval the goal, we abandon authenticity. We start to shapeshift, to shrink, to mold ourselves into what we think others want. We second guess our voice. We edit ourselves in real time. We say yes when we mean no. We quiet our truth to avoid discomfort. And in the process, we lose ourselves. What we're really seeking isn't approval. It's belonging. And there's a massive difference. Approval says fit in. Belonging says, come as you are. Approval is conditional. It asks you to perform. Belonging is sacred. It invites you to be real. We cannot fully belong to anything or anyone if we are not showing up fully ourselves. You cannot feel love for who you are if you never show who you are. Let that sink in. The moment we stop contorting ourselves for other people's comfort, we begin to belong to ourselves. And when you belong to yourself, other people's opinions matter, but they don't define you. Their approval is no longer your currency. Your truth is. So ask yourself this, are you chasing approval or are you chasing authenticity? Because one will wear you out. The other will set you free. We don't like to talk about regret. We tuck it away in the dark corners of our memory and try to pretend it isn't there. We say things like no regrets, as if that's the gold standard of a life well lived. But the truth is, if you're living with any amount of courage, risk, or vulnerability, you will make choices that don't go the way you hoped. And sometimes you will wish you had done things differently. That's not failure. That's being human. Regret isn't here to shame you. It's here to shape you. It's not a life sentence. It's a lesson. Think about it. Regret shows up when something in our past doesn't align with our present day values or wisdom. It's often the voice that says, you know better now. And that's not weakness. That's growth. That's the sign of a self-aware, evolving person. The problem is not regret itself, it's how we relate to it. Some of us carry it like a backpack full of bricks, lugging it through our lives as a form of self-punishment. We replay the scene, we rewrite the words, we torment ourselves with, if only, as if maybe, just maybe, we can bend time and undo it. But we can't. And beating ourselves up doesn't make us better. It just keeps us stuck. Others try to outrun it altogether, numb it, pretend it didn't happen, call it the past, and slam the door shut. But when we do that, we lose the opportunity to learn from it. What if instead we sat down with our regret like we would with a wise mentor? What if we asked, what are you trying to show me? What matters to me now that I didn't know back then? How can I honor this regret by living more fully today? Regret can teach us where our boundaries are, what we truly value, who we want to become moving forward. It can lead us back to integrity, to clarity, to deeper compassion for ourselves and others. And maybe most importantly, regret can be the birthplace of grace. When we look at our past selves, not with judgment, but with tenderness, we start to understand we were doing the best we could with what we knew at the time. And now we know more. And that means we can do more, differently, better. Not perfectly, but with heart. So no, regret isn't something to fear or erase. It's a signpost, a teacher, a quiet invitation to choose growth over guilt. Let me know when you're ready for the next one. Perfection is armor. Vulnerability is liberation. That whispers to us that if we just try a little harder, do a little better, fix one more thing, then we'll finally be safe. Then we'll be loved. Then we'll be enough. So we reach for it like a shield. We polish our image. We hide the messy parts. We rehearse our words, triple check our work, silence our needs, and post the highlight reel. And from the outside, it might look like we've got it all together, but inside, we're tired, we're disconnected, but we're lonely in the most crowded room. Because here's the paradox. Perfection doesn't protect us, it isolates us. When we present only the curated version of ourselves, we might avoid judgment, but we also block connection. People can't truly love us if they don't truly see us. Perfection is armor, and like all armor, it's heavy. It weighs down our creativity, our relationships, our joy. It tells us that love is something we have to earn, not something we inherently deserve. It's a defense mechanism dressed up as ambition, but underneath it's just fear. Fear of being found out, fear of not being good enough, fear of letting people see the cracks. But let me say this clearly. The cracks are where the light comes in. The cracks are where people find the courage to be honest with you, to say you too, to feel less alone because you dared to show up real. And that's where vulnerability steps in, not as weakness, but as the truest kind of strength. Vulnerability is saying, here I am, imperfect and whole and still worthy of love. It's admitting you don't have all the answers. It's asking for help when everything in you wants to pretend you're fine. It's telling the truth when silence would be safer. It's loving first without the guarantee of being loved back. Vulnerability is not comfortable. It's risky, but it's also the birthplace of connection, joy, creativity, intimacy, and healing. Everything meaningful in our lives flows through that open space where the armor comes off and we meet each other heart to heart. So if you feel yourself reaching for perfection, pause, ask yourself, what am I trying to protect? What if I trusted that who I am, messy, flawed, raw, is already enough? You're not need to be perfect to be powerful. You need to be real to be free. Ready for the next one? Stillness is strength. We're taught that movement equals progress, that noise equals relevance, that if we're not doing, achieving, producing, or proving, we're somehow falling behind. So we keep going. We run from meeting to meeting, scroll through distractions, say yes to things we don't have the capacity for, and keep ourselves just busy enough not to feel what's really going on underneath. But here's the truth no one tells you loud enough. Rest is not a reward. Stillness is not laziness. Silence is not weakness. Stillness is wisdom. Stillness is power. Stillness is strength. Because in stillness, we meet ourselves. In stillness, all the noise fades. The external pressure, the internal monologue, the shame, the scrambling for approval, and what's left is something so much deeper, clarity. Stillness is where we hear the quiet voice beneath the chaos, the voice that says, this is what I need. This is not okay. This is who I really am. But stillness can be uncomfortable. That's why we avoid it. Because when the world gets quiet, our truth gets loud. And sometimes we don't want to face the grief, the guilt, the fear, or the longing that starts to surface. Yet that's exactly where the freedom begins. Not by fixing everything, but by simply being present with it. By sitting still long enough to say, this matters, this hurts. This deserves my attention. Stillness isn't a lack of movement, it's intentional presence. It's the strength, the pause before reacting, to breathe before spiraling, to reflect before choosing, to rest without apologizing. And make no mistake, that kind of pause, that kind of grounding, it's a radical act of courage, especially in a culture that equates worth with productivity and pace. But some of the most powerful decisions you will ever make will come from moments of stillness, not panic, not pressure, but pause. So let yourself stop, let yourself breathe, let yourself be. You're not falling behind. You're finding your way, because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not to push harder, but to go still long enough to come home to yourself. That who we are as we are, without the striving, without the proving, without the masks, is already enough. And yet, everything around us tells a different story. We are bombarded with messages that say, do more, be more, fix this, improve that, change yourself, and maybe you'll be worthy. So we hustle for worthiness. We chase the next goal. We shrink parts of ourselves and amplify others to earn acceptance. We become masters of performance and strangers to ourselves. But here's what I want to say to you. And I need you to hear it in your bones. You were born with it. You don't become enough when you hit a